If you're an American thinking about dating a Russian, stop right there. Because what you're about to discover is a cultural clash so intense that it can either feel like the most passionate adventure of your life or the heaviest burden you'll ever carry. Welcome to Cultural Clashes, the channel where we expose the hidden battles that happen when worlds collide. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, leave your comment, and share this video. Trust me, after hearing this, you'll want to join the debate. Dating Russians is not like dating people from most Western countries. It's not just about love, romance, and fun. It's about history, culture, expectations, and a way of life that goes back centuries. Americans often enter these relationships with naive curiosity, attracted to the mystery and beauty of Russian partners. But what they find is a love that demands loyalty, sacrifice, and strength far beyond what they're used to. Let's imagine a couple. Mark, a 32-year-old American from California, easygoing, casual, raised to believe relationships should be about freedom and partnership. And Anastasia, a 28-year-old Russian from Moscow, elegant, intense, raised to believe that love should be deep, serious, and all-consuming. At first, their connection feels magical. Mark admires her beauty, her intelligence, her confidence. Anastasia admires his openness, his optimism, his casual charm. But soon the cultural storm begins. The first shock is seriousness. In America, dating can be casual. Let's see where this goes. In Russia, dating is rarely casual. It's serious from the beginning. Anastasia expects commitment. She asks about the future after just a few months. Mark feels pressured. For him, love should grow naturally. For her, if he isn't thinking about marriage, he isn't serious. Family plays another huge role. Americans often date for themselves. Parents may give opinions, but the couple decides. In Russia, family approval carries weight, especially from parents and grandparents. Anastasia introduces Mark to her family early, expecting respect and seriousness. He cracks casual jokes, thinking he's being friendly. But her family sees it as immaturity. They expect discipline, respect, and clear intentions. Mark suddenly realizes he's not just dating Anastasia, he's being evaluated by an entire family. Then come gender expectations. American culture emphasizes equality. Chores are shared, bills are split, both partners are independent. Russian culture, however, often leans toward traditional roles. Men are expected to provide, protect, and take the lead. Women are expected to nurture, support, and care for the family. Anastasia admires Mark's kindness, but when he suggests splitting dinner bills, she feels disappointed. For her, a man should take responsibility. For him, equality means fairness. What he calls modern, she calls weak. Communication is another battlefield. Americans are casual, light-hearted, often joking in relationships. Russians are more direct, serious, even intense. Anastasia doesn't laugh at all of Mark's jokes. She wants depth, seriousness, meaningful conversations. "Why are you always joking?" she asks. For Mark, humor is love. For her, humor can feel like avoidance. She expects weight and responsibility, not constant playfulness. Romance itself looks different. Americans often express love through words and small gestures. I love you, gifts, surprises. Russians often express love through devotion, sacrifice, and intensity. Anastasia shows love by worrying about Mark's health, cooking for him, planning his future. He appreciates it, but he doesn't recognize it as romance. He expects lightness, flowers, and laughter. She expects loyalty, strength, and presence. They both feel misunderstood, and then there's jealousy. In America, jealousy is usually seen as insecurity. In Russia, jealousy is often tied to love. If Anastasia doesn't get jealous, it might mean she doesn't care. When Mark laughs with a female friend, she reacts strongly. For him, it feels controlling. For her, it feels natural. The cultural clash grows heavier with every passing month. What attracted them at first now becomes the source of frustration. His freedom feels like irresponsibility. Her intensity feels like suffocation. His optimism feels naive. Her realism feels cold. But the most powerful difference lies in worldview. Americans are raised to believe life is about happiness, chasing dreams, living freely. Russians are raised with history marked by struggle, resilience, and survival. For them, life is not about constant happiness. It's about endurance, strength, and loyalty. That worldview shapes love. Anastasia doesn't expect constant fun. She expects commitment, sacrifice, even suffering together. Mark expects love to be joyful. For her, love is about weathering storms. For him, love is about enjoying sunshine. And this is why Americans who date Russians often find themselves shocked. They expected romance, but they discover discipline. They expected fun, but they find responsibility. They expected lightness, but they meet gravity. This is only the beginning of the story. Because as we go deeper, we'll see how money, loyalty, tradition, and even small daily habits turn into explosive conflicts. When Americans date Russians, they're not just dating a person. They're dating a culture built on strength, sacrifice, and survival. Stay tuned, because the clash is only getting started. As the months pass, the initial passion between Mark and Anastasia transforms into a constant test of endurance. They both love each other, but love feels different in their worlds. And every day, they are reminded of how far apart their definitions of love really are. Money becomes one of the sharpest differences. In America, financial independence is a given. My money is mine, your money is yours. Splitting bills is normal. In Russia, financial responsibility is often tied to masculinity. A man's ability to provide shows his worth. When Mark suggests sharing rent equally, Anastasia feels undervalued. For her, a man should provide stability. For him, partnership means equality. Their fights about money aren't really about money. They're about identity. Public image also plays a role. In American culture, relationships are private. Couples decide how much to share. In Russia, relationships are often displayed, judged, and compared. Families, friends, even co-workers may comment on whether a man is treating his partner properly. Anastasia expects Mark to bring flowers regularly to show affection in ways her society respects. He doesn't understand why appearances matter so much. For him, love is personal. For her, love is social. Another clash arises in conflict resolution. Americans often talk openly, even loudly, to solve problems. Russians tend to be more intense, sometimes holding silence until a dramatic confrontation. When Mark tries to calmly discuss issues, Anastasia sees it as weak. She expects passion, even arguments, as proof that the relationship matters. For him, yelling means failure. For her, yelling means honesty. Even daily routines reveal the clash. Mark enjoys casual weekends, movies, hiking, barbecues. Anastasia expects structured plans, family visits, traditional meals. When he cancels a dinner with her relatives to watch a football game, she feels insulted. He sees it as balancing priorities. She sees it as disrespect. The heaviest challenge, however, comes with expectations of sacrifice. In America, love is about supporting each other's individual dreams. In Russia, love is often about merging lives completely, even giving up dreams for the relationship. Anastasia expects Mark to move to Moscow permanently, to adapt to her culture, to embrace her traditions fully. He hesitates. For him, compromise is enough. For her, compromise isn't enough. It's devotion or nothing. As time goes on, Mark begins to feel drained. Every gesture, every word, every action is measured against cultural expectations he doesn't fully understand. Anastasia begins to feel neglected. His casualness feels like indifference. His independence feels like abandonment. They love each other, but love has become a battlefield, and this is the warning. Americans dating Russians often underestimate the weight of cultural expectations. They think it's about language or food, but it's about worldview, history, and identity. To love a Russian is to accept intensity, responsibility, and sacrifice. To them, love is not just about happiness, it's about strength. Does this mean Americans and Russians can't find love together? Not at all. Some succeed. But it requires patience, resilience, and the courage to embrace differences without trying to erase them. It requires Americans to understand that love isn't always light, and Russians to understand that love doesn't always need suffering. But here's the truth. Most people aren't ready for that. That's why so many of these relationships start with passion and end with exhaustion. So, should Americans date Russians? Only if they're ready to give more than they ever expected. Only if they're ready to trade comfort for intensity, freedom for responsibility, and casual love for lifelong loyalty. Because in Russia, love is not a game, it's a war you fight together. So tell me, would you survive dating a Russian? Or would you walk away before the first battle begins? Leave your answer in the comments. Subscribe to Cultural Clashes and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because when cultures collide, love is never simple, it's survival.